they're projecting almost 3 million jobs gone by 2030. That's only 6 years away, y'all. 3 million people, no job? What you think these streets gonna look like? What you think crime is gonna look like? And I wanna remind y'all, all what's happening now is we're reliving the 90s. The 90s. I want y'all to look at the homelessness. I want you to look at the jobs. I want you to look at everything around you and say, damn, this feels familiar. And you know when it hit for me? When someone I know, their property got burnt down because they were smoking drugs next door. You know what they were smoking? Crack. Crack is back. You know when you get to a phase where you go, wait, people are smoking $2 and $5 crack again? Like, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That speaks in volumes. So you please Google this. Like I always like to remind people, before I start talking, I like to Google because it helps me think about the next thing. And I need you to ask yourself why at least 3 times and go down the rabbit hole. And when you get to the point where you're scared and you realize nothing benefits you, you're probably on the right track, right? So now they're smoking crack, and I'm looking at the numbers, and they're showing the numbers now are reaching to a point that matches 2009. Smoking crack. I'm like, that's insane. But what's happening? They're not gonna do like when opioids and pills. They're not gonna create programs. They're not gonna help them. Why? Because unfortunately, the majority of people smoke crack, ain't the type that was taking the pills where they wanted to help them. So now it's gonna create another scenario of the Walking Dead scenario of, I hate to say our people because I don't like to keep it in an hour of just being a black thing all the time. When I say our, I mean people that come from struggle, strife, who had to have bread and mustard sandwich, who know hard time. You know what I mean? And you can't put a color on a struggle sometimes. So when I say our people, don't just get locked in that I'm talking about black people. Get locked in that I'm talking about a struggle that's happening. All right? So when we look at it going back to the 90s, the only thing that pulled us out of the 90s was jobs. They opened up Dumbo, they opened up malls, they opened up stores. Like they opened up things and said, we're gonna give all of y'all jobs. And jobs started changing things.
Right.
And I like to use this Dumbo as an example. Space was sitting here dormant. Now it's opened up, they created jobs for everything. The area got better. And they promised and gave jobs, but people who understood where this was going, they came in and started buying houses, right? They gave us jobs to help us pay our rent. But they didn't offer,
I know where you're going, yeah.
They didn't offer us ownership.
Right, right.
They didn't come here and say, if you work here for 5 years, we're going to create a mortgage program for you to now buy housing in your area. But instead, we watch everybody else come buy the housing, and they made it safer for them to live here. But we paid rent. They bought. Now they got ownership, and now they're good. Now Dumbo's happening. See, the mentality of the other people that moved here never was about being renters. It was about owning. It was about starting a business. And it's not our fault that we think this way. It's because it was inherited. We watched our mother and our grandmother, they worked the job, most likely off the books, most likely just barely making some money, barely doing this, barely getting. And so when we got a job and it was on the books, it was like, oh, I got a job. And our parents were telling us, you better go get a job. You better get a job. You better get a job. My dad was like, get a job or go to the military, one or the other. And I was like, I ain't doing neither one. Like, I learned how to get into tech and all that stuff. But we were never taught ownership. So when we heard the word job, it was like the heavens opened up for us. Like, oh, I'm going to have a job. But if you say a job to other people who understand ownership, they're going to go, that's bondage. They think different. So now what they're not thinking about is, what will happen when the jobs are gone? Will the people who move here be safe?